Hello, Glenn Sample here, and welcome to my channel, The Men on the Sixth Floor. Today we're going to be talking about the question, was there a Grassy Knoll shooter? You know, you can't even have a discussion about the Kennedy assassination without this subject coming up. Was there a Grassy Knoll shooter? And you know, a lot of interest was shown about a Grassy Knoll shooter, especially after the mid-70s premiere of the Zapruder film on nationwide television. People saw the president being struck in the head, moving backwards and to the left, which indicated, and it looked like, a shot from the front. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to do a few episodes on the question, is there or was there a Grassy Knoll shooter? First of all, we're going to talk about the crowd reaction to the assassination. But later episodes, we're going to be talking more about, of course, the smoke that was observed, how many people observed the smoke, and the smell of gunpowder in that triple overpass Grassy Knoll area. And lastly, we're going to do a segment on how could a shooter possibly sit up there and not get seen or caught, because it was rather open. But let's deal with subject number one, the crowd reaction to the shots. Was there a Grassy Knoll shooter?
So in spite of what we hear from the Warren Commission that there are no other shots fired from anywhere else but the School Book Depository, what do we see here in these films? From the day of the assassination, from the seconds following the assassination, we see dozens and dozens of people running to the Grassy Knoll area, up the hill, all the way to the picket fence, all the way to the triple overpass. And these are not just civilians that are running up there. There are dozens of policemen. In fact, it was reported that over 50 policemen ended up in the railroad yards and in the Grassy Knoll area searching for a gunman. Probably two of the best witnesses were William and Gail Newman, who with their two children stood on the Grassy Knoll by the curb within 10 feet or 15 feet of where the president was actually shot. Listen to their interview and see if you can determine where they think the shots may have come from.
We just come from left field after seeing the president and the first lady, and we were just in front of the triple underpass on Elm Street, and we're at the edge of the curve, getting ready to wave at the president. So
you were down under the viaduct, so to speak, weren't you?
Well, we were halfway in between
on the grass,
the triple underpass. We were at the curb when the incident happened. But the president's car was some 50 feet still yet
in front of you.
In front of us, coming towards us, and we heard the first shot, and the president, I don't know who was hit first, but the president jumped up in his seat, and I thought it scared him. I thought it was a firecracker because he looked, fear. And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the president in the side of the temple.
Do you think the first gunshot came from behind you too?
I think it came from the same location. Apparently back up on the mall. I don't know what you call it.
For the benefit of nomenclature, all of you folks have gone out under the viaduct, and as you turn, going under the viaduct on the left-hand side, there's some grass. Do you think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the president? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground there, the garden.
Another witness that is interesting is Roy Truly, the supervisor of the School Book Depository building. Roy Truly was standing right out in front of his building during the motorcade. And in his testimony to the Warren Commission, he says to Mr. Bellin, who asked him the question, where do you think the shots came from? Truly says, I thought the shots came from the vicinity of the railroad. or the WPA project, behind the WPA project, west of the building. So he's actually describing the Grassy Knoll area. And then he describes how he took or accompanied Officer Baker up to the top of the roof, and in the meantime, on the second floor, had the encounter with Lee Harvey Oswald. But as soon as he got up to the roof and saw that the gunman wasn't up there, he said, "I believe the officer told me as we walked down into the 7th floor, 'Be careful, this man will blow your head off.' And I told the officer I didn't feel like the shots came from the building. I said, 'I think we're wasting our time up here,' or words to that effect. 'I don't believe these shots came from the building.'" Well, that was interesting observation from someone who stood right near the steps of the School Book Depository. And then there's Sam Holland, one of my favorite witnesses. He was a railroad worker that was standing up on top of the Triple Overpass Bridge during the Kennedy assassination. He was actually given the assignment by the policeman there to make sure that no one was on that bridge that wasn't a railroad worker, that didn't belong on that bridge, because they wanted to keep that area secure. Well, listen as Sam Holland describes what he saw that day and what he did. You'll find this very interesting if you haven't seen it before.
Where do you think the shots came from?
Well, I know where that third shot came from.
Where did that shot come from?
Behind the picket fence.
Is there any
close to the little plaza.
Is there any doubt in your mind that that shot came from behind the
There's
fence?
no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind in the statement that I made in the sheriff's office immediately after the shooting, and the statement that I made to the Warren Commission. And I made it very plain there was no doubt in my mind. But there was definitely a shot fired from behind that picket fence. I made it plain to the Warren Commission, and I think I made the same statement in the sheriff's office. There was a fourth shot.
On November 22nd, Mr. Holland, did you tell the sheriff's office in an affidavit you signed that day that you saw a puff of smoke come from behind the picket fence?
I am certain I did.
Was it the general feeling, would you say, Mr. Holland, among the police officers and others, at the moment that the shots were fired, that at least one shot came from behind that wooden fence?
There's about 6 or 8 of us boys from the Union Terminal run around there to find some evidence that there was someone around there. Certainly the ones that was with me that run around that fence realized what was happening. They told me the same thing that I told you, that there was definitely a shot fired, and they saw the smoke. We just all started running around that fence as a unit.
Is this the exact spot you were standing on November 22nd, Mr. Holland?
That's correct. This is the exact spot that I was standing November the 22nd, waiting for the parade.
And where did you hear that third shot come from?
Right over about 20 or 30 feet from the other end of that little picket fence.
And where was the smoke that you saw?
It drifted right out underneath those green trees, those 2 trees.
From behind the fence?
From behind the fence. It kind of hung there just like for a few seconds, long enough that you could see that it was
and then what
puff of smoke.
And then what'd you do?
Immediately after the president's car came underneath this overpass, 4 of us broke a run around this fence to find out if we could see anybody leaving the area.
Can we walk this way now that you went on the 22nd?
No, we can walk that way right now.
Fine.
trying to see what we could see, and
This was the direction you walked on the 22nd.
this was the direction. I made this right turn. Jumped this steam line, this pipe, and one man right behind me jumped, and another one jumped right on top of him.
Fell on top of him?
Fell on top of him.
And were there more cars here on the 22nd than there are today?
They were bumper to bumper. There's just a sea of cars. You couldn't hardly get through them. We were jumping over the bumpers, over the hood of the cars to work our way to the spot that we saw the smoke and heard the shot. And then we came up to the wooden fence.
Mr. Holland, did you remain behind here for a while when the police officers were searching the area?
Approximately 15 minutes before I had to go back to my office. There was about 40 or 50 people around here searching.
And what did you find here?
A lot of footprints behind this car, mud on the bumpers. And I looked around to see if I could find some empty shells or any evidence of a shot being fired and the bullet shell rejected from the gun. And this is where I saw the smoke from the third shot.
Right drifting out around here?
Just drifting out underneath these trees.
And when that shot hit the president, as he passed by this lamppost, did you see the effect of the shot upon the president?
Well, it knocked him over to his left down in the car.
Away from here?
Away from here.
About where was he in relation, where was the car, the presidential limousine, in relation to the lamppost?
Just a little to the left of that lamppost we're looking at.
We are in Mesquite, Texas, in the home of James Leon Simmons, a car inspector for the Union Terminal Railroad. Mr. Simmons, how long have you been employed by the Union Terminal?
I've been employed by the Union Terminal 11 years.
Were you a witness to the assassination of President Kennedy?
Yes, I was standing on the Elm Street overpass at the time of the assassination.
Were you there alone or with others?
There was a group of employees from the Union Terminal at the time and 2 Dallas policemen.
What did you see and what did you hear?
As the presidential limousine was rounding the curve on Elm Street, there was a loud explosion. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like a loud firecracker or a gunshot. And it sounded like it came from the left and in front of us, towards the wooden fence. And there was a puff of smoke that came underneath the trees on the embankment.
Where was the puff of smoke, Mr. Simmons, in relation to the wooden fence?
It was right directly in front of the wooden fence at the time. And as soon as we heard the shots, we ran around to the wooden fence. And when we got there, there was no one there, but there was footprints in the mud around the fence, and there was footprints on the wooden 2x4 railing on the fence.
Were you questioned by the Dallas police on that day?
Yes, I was.
Did you give your name to the Dallas police?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them what you've just told me?
Yes, I did.
Were you subsequently questioned by agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
About a month later, I was questioned by the FBI.
Did you tell them what you told me and what you told the Dallas police?
Yes, I did.
Were you ever called as a witness by the Warren Commission?
No, sir, I wasn't.
This is the Warren Commission report. Back of it has an index of every person who is referred to by the Commission. Is your name present there?
No, sir, it isn't.
I think it's rather curious that you had such a fine view of the whole Dealey Plaza area, and you were among those who saw smoke coming from evidently behind the fence, and yet you were not called by the commission as a witness.
Well, I always thought it peculiar, but I thought that's the way they did business.
Could you tell me how many shots you heard?
More than 3.
More than 3?
That's right.
Do you have any idea how many more than 3?
No, sir, I don't, but they didn't come from the direction that they say.
Oh, you don't believe what they say in the...
No, sir, I do not.
Could you tell me where you thought these shots came from?
Yeah, they come from a tree to the left of my left, which is to the immediate right of the site of the assassination.
That would be on that grassy hill up there.
Yeah, on the hill up there. There's 2 or 3 hackberry and elm trees, and I say it come from there.
Well, was there anything that actually led you to believe that the shots came from there?
Yeah, smoke.
You saw smoke.
Sure did.
Could you tell me exactly where you saw the smoke?
Yeah, in that tree.